Hey, thank you so much for joining Love Oz YA to chat all about We Who Hunt the Hollow. Really loved this YA fantasy. So for those who don't know, can you tell us a little bit about what the book is about?
Yeah, sure. So We Who Hunt the Hollow is a YA urban fantasy. It's set in a wild future where monsters from an evil universe are invading our world, and superpowered hollow warriors are humanity's last line of defense. And it's about a young hollow warrior in training called Priscilla, who is the youngest in a long line of famous hollow warriors. And she feels like she doesn't quite live up to the legacy of her name. So she attempts a ritual to give herself better superpowers, but it goes horribly wrong. And she basically ends up in a place where she's made herself quite dangerous, and she's trying to juggle the problems that she's caused alongside a family reunion where all of her family's all getting back together, and she is also starting to date someone new.
Yeah, it's such a great concept, and I love that you made this beautiful magical world and still just had the most, relatable things. Like we always feel like we're not good enough, and you've got, Priscilla still trying to have her love life as a teenager. Like it was really well done.
Yeah.
So what was the inspiration behind the story?
So I think it's quite a funny journey to coming to write this book, because I hadn't actually planned to write it. I was working on something else at the time, which was a adult space opera sci-fi, and I saw a call for I know, and I saw a call for submissions for novellas, and I thought, oh, that would be quite fun to write a novella. And then this idea just kind of like it came out of nowhere and hit me, almost fully formed, about a family of all female superheroes getting together for Christmas. And that was the first spark of the idea. But I knew that I wanted the novella to be like a feminist story with quite a lot of female characters. And I pulled inspiration from the Amazons of Themyscira and Wonder Woman for that sort of concept of fierce warrior women. And I also pulled inspiration from Practical Magic for that sort of cozy, witchy family vibes. And then also basically from every superhero movie that's ever been made. So I popped my space opera off to the side, and I sat down to write the novella. And it was so much fun to write. It was just an absolute joy. And I submitted it to a couple of places, and it wasn't successful, but I couldn't let the story go. It had been so much fun to write. And I think, like, I'm a big proponent of following the joy with writing. So I just kept thinking about it, and then it just sort of hit me one day, oh, actually, it's supposed to be a young adult's novel. It's supposed to have been one all along. And I think it actually already fit the category quite well with the voice of Priscilla, the main character, and the way that she is sort of struggling to find out what's her place in her family and what's her place in the world as well. So I went back to the novella and sort of built it up from there. And obviously I had to sort of add a bit more complexity when it came to the plot and the world building. But sort of that process then is when it became the story that it is today. And then I submitted it to the Ampersand Prize with Hardy Grant Children's Publishing, and here we are.
I love that story. I think because what really not like surprised me, but something that I really loved about the novel was, it's set out as like, it's a YA fantasy. We've got these dark creatures and magic and this, future world. But it was the family ties that just I loved so much. There were so many times where I thought that there was going to be like time for drama, or like her family would give up on her, and that never happened. They were always so supportive, and it was weirdly like just a nice change. I don't know, just to have this like a YA character has a family.
Yeah.
So I really love that that was the origin, because
Oh,
I think
thank
you can
you.
really feel
Yeah.
that that was the heart.
I really love writing about families, sort of families which are born and families which are made as well. And I know that sometimes in young adults, especially in like fantasy and dystopian, that families are can be absent. So I'm pleased that We Who Hunt the Hollow has a family that's right at its core, and none of them die. So she has two.
Yeah, so good.
She has two sort of very loving, very present, and very much alive mothers, and
Yes.
a pretty cool grandmother and lots of sisters. So
No, it was definitely my favorite part of the whole thing. It just felt really wholesome. So the fact that it started as like, those bunch of female superheroes just trying to get together for Christmas,
Yeah.
and that is what happens in the book. It was just really enjoyable.
Christmas is still there.
Yeah, I just will think of the cactus every time now.
Yeah.
Okay, so we love the family ties, big part of it. But the other part that I really loved was the fact that it was set in this like future kind of world. Can you talk to us a little bit about how that came about?
Yeah. Well, I guess first of all, like, I love setting. It's one of my favorite aspects of writing in general. I love sort of world building, and I love description, and I'm quite a visual reader and writer, so I really like to be able to see a place in my mind's eye. And when it came to writing We Who Hunt the Hollow, I just jam-packed it full of everything that I love. And one of the things that I love is science fiction. So that's why it is set in a future where we have had several generations sort of dealing with monsters from the Hollow, and we're at a place where there's a bit of an equilibrium where Hollow warriors are now keeping the peace. And that love of science fiction is also why there's also that sort of Blade Runner vibes to the story as well, with the sort of futuristic city streets and the neon and the flying vehicles and the rain and the storms, although I've extrapolated a little bit of climate change effects to get the weather patterns alongside the effects of the sort of evil universe invading our world as well. And like I hope that readers will quite enjoy sort of knowing that it's set in our world, and sort of being able to see familiar places, that they might be able to figure out where they are if they squint their eyes hard enough.
Yeah, no, it was done really well, because it still felt it just wasn't in your face dystopia. It was kind of like you were seeing enough hints that you're like, oh my god, I think this is our world. But yeah, with the weather patterns was really well done, because it just kind of was enough to fill in the gaps of what's happened throughout the years. So I think that was super interesting and really well done. And I just was hoping you could talk a little bit about how you found that balance between, like Priscilla goes to like Hollow Warrior School, and there's these really sort of familiar mythical creatures, and some different ones. So there's some of the familiar YA fantasy aspects and some new different ones. How did you find that balance to keep it fresh?
I think it might be because when I started writing the book, I guess I wasn't really thinking about trying to fit it within a genre or a category. I was literally just pulling out the things that I enjoyed writing about, that I could worry about all the other stuff later. So it was simply a matter of saying, well, I love futuristic settings, so I'm going to pop that in there. And then I knew I wanted superheroes, and then I had to say, well, if I've got superheroes, then why do we have superheroes, and what's the purpose of them? And then so that then led to saying, oh, well, let's have monsters coming in from an evil universe, and using familiar names for monsters, that we might have had from mythology as well. And giving the superheroes animal familiars as well, which is also sort of something that's sort of from folklore. So it was really just a matter of plucking out those things that I like to write about and popping them all into a story together.
Yeah, it works so well though. I really love it. Yeah, I love the like the modernity of like the meet and greet and things like that. It's really well done.